You want to start us off?
Are we starting it off like we used to?
No.
Oh.
This is still...
Oh, yeah. I'm Kim Duke, and I'm married to an addict.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, Chris. Oh, I don't say that back. I've never been to a meeting.
That's okay. And hi, my name's Chris, and I'm an addict alcoholic. Now you say hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris. We'll do that again. We'll.
Huh?
Well.
You mean we'll have opportunities?
Yeah.
I got you. So what did I write down there? You can't read my...
No.
Oh, almost. Oh, yeah. Okay. Now I remember. So there's two things I wanted to bring up. A family member brought up that, because did you listen to the last episode?
The one you recently released? No.
So this is a wild thing, and so people realize Kim and I don't record together, and I wanted to do it that way to make sure that Kim was giving her undivided opinion not just opinion, but side of the story when you're talking. I thought that was important because when we would record other podcasts, I overshadowed a lot of stuff. So I wanted to make sure that you have the undivided attention of the audience. There we go. That's what
okay.
But the last episode, I talked about kind of the childhood stuff that I went through, being introduced to porn at a super young age, and then that sexual encounter, visually seeing that at the age of 6, and then I talked about how I think that I had a pattern of what is a womanizer?
Just that? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. See, I wasn't sure. So I think that the self-destructive behavior in all of the relationships that I was in, and falling in love with people super quickly, and all of these things, I think was my dopamine levels being associated with a female.
Mm-hmm.
And so my brain was just there has to be another way of getting that feeling. So initially, because I think of the religious background, my brain associated with getting that dopamine kick via romance, and romance having to mean real love from the religious part of my brain, because it has to be forever.
Okay.
And so I talked about that. And so somebody had brought up, I didn't mention that I moved out for 3 months when I was 17, basically just because I got caught my parents figured out that I was having premarital relations, and I basically moved out so that I could have sex without being judged, which is now looking back on it, the same pattern of addictive personality and addictive behavior. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to say that. And then, was it Monday? I think it was Monday.
Yeah, it was
earlier
Monday.
This week. So I have to take a bunch of medications now. Some because I was dealing with anxiety and depression and stuff with substances. Once those things were removed, my body started to freak out in other ways, and anxiety attacks came back, and so all these things, and then I ended up tweaking my back again. So I'm on this stuff called gabapentin. Sorry, I'm talking really fast, and it's making me
I know,
really
I can
bad.
tell.
I feel like I talked so slow the last time.
I know.
It drives me crazy.
Well, listen, I listened to the first episode. I don't like how slow I talk either.
Yeah, but the gabapentin that they have me on now, they reduced the number of pills that I have to take, so they combine them into one pill. And the pill looks totally different now. And it resembles my 800 milligram ibuprofens. And so what I think happened was what I know happened. I thought I was taking my ibuprofen after already taking 1/600 of gabapentin in the morning, and ended up taking another gabapentin because the bottles look almost exactly the same. The pills look almost exactly the same. If you grab it from the top up or the top down, there's no notch in the bottom of the gabapentin. So it looks just like the ibuprofen. So I ended up taking 2 gabapentins and unintentionally experienced a type of high from that, and I started freaking out because I've been working super hard, right? Like went through all this stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was panicking and texting people from the treatment center that I was at, like friends that I had made through that, and was like, this sucks. I hate that, because my body, like, I could already tell that, like, my body kind of enjoyed it. And at first I thought I was just kind of sleepy, and sometimes, like, tired in the morning, you feel just relaxed. So I thought it was that, but so then I started to get, like, angry, because it's like my midbrain doesn't know the difference. My midbrain is just like, sick. We got our little fix, and that's all we care about. And then every other part of me was like, this fucking blows. That I know it doesn't count as a relapse because it was an accident, but you still feel like, I don't know. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
Really frustrating. So yeah, that's the most recent thing that's been going on. By the time this has aired, I also will have hit my 60 days. So I bought myself a coin because right now with everything going on, I can't go to like an AA meeting or an NA meeting to get a coin, which is like usually what's the word I'm looking for? Tradition.
Yeah.
That you get it from one of your typically your home group.
Yeah.
But yeah, we obviously can't do that, so I just bought my own coin, and yeah, excited for that.
Gonna have a coin collection. It's gonna be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a decent amount of coins going now. Okay. Any updates from you, Kim Duke? Do you want to say anything about
the last episode or anything?
Or last episode, conversations that you've had with people? What do you think so far the reception has been?
Been good. A lot of messages, a lot of posts. The last episode, I've gotten messages about how, like, people that are close to me know things I've gone through, and I think it was hard for them to hear it again. I had like a little anxiety today after it was posted because now it's out there in the world forever with my face, the things that I've gone through. So I'm never going to run for president or any other political thing because now it's out there and they'll use that against you. But I don't know. That's real life. Yeah. I mean, I think everyone is so, like I've said before, everyone's really good at putting like this picture on. Make everything in your life look great on social media. And I've done that. I do that. My Instagram looks picture perfect, and that's not real life. I mean, far from it. Our relationship isn't perfect. Our family life isn't perfect. Our house isn't, yeah. So.
Yeah. I'm so used to like sharing everything already.
Yeah.
That it didn't feel different, but then like not realizing the there were certain people involved with certain stories and like events in my life that I have to be more careful about.
Yeah, I didn't say a lot, I guess. I mean, I didn't say names of things in like particular where people could figure out maybe who it was. I left a lot of that out because, I mean, it was a long time ago, and obviously you grow and you move on from those events, and
But I just meant like from my end. Like I haven't done anything, like said anything that is that outs anybody specifically.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't realize how easy it is to, step by step deduct who that person is for somebody who knows me.
Yeah.
So I have just like realizing after the first episode that I have to be more careful of how I present the shit that I've gone through, because a part of recovery is, even if you're making amends like with yourself and saying these things out loud, it's a part of the guideline that you do so making sure that it doesn't bring bring physical or financial harm to somebody else.
Oh, okay.
So it's something that I got to be more aware of for sure when I do that stuff. But otherwise, I think, people they're way more interested in this than the other stuff.
I think that's because it's real life.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was silliness and
yeah. And I think, like I said, I think my stuff was overshadowing your stuff a lot in those other episodes.
Oh.
Not all the time, but,
Yeah.
feeling the need to jump in to make jokes and stuff like that. So this is one necessary, I think, because I'm not able to go to meetings physically, and there's other stuff going on when we're home. So making it to those online meetings, I'm making excuses, but it just doesn't feel the same having an online meeting with somebody, which is not to say that people shouldn't do that. It's just, I should do it. I'm just making excuses.
You're making excuses. So maybe we should deter from that, because now you're making excuses.
Yeah.
But mainly we're going to do this to answer questions that people may have had.
Questions. So question number one.
I feel like there's a hair
tickling you on the old mic there.
There it is. Okay. It was one of your beard hairs.
What?
Yeah.
I think it was a dog hair.
It was thick like a beard hair.
Well, dog hair is also thick.
Okay.
Thick like me. So question number one is, do you condemn drugs and alcohol universally, so like across the board, or do you just see it as something that is not for you, like an allergy, which is how people describe the addiction sometimes?
Do you want me to go first, or you want to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
I don't condemn it. It's not for me. It's like an allergy. It's just not gonna be a part of my life, which is fine. There's people that can do things responsibly. Drugs, on the other hand, like if we're talking about specific drugs, I guess I'm not gonna go there, because I don't think there's certain drugs that people should use just because they can potentially kill you. I guess alcohol can potentially kill you too. So that's hard. That's a hard question. I don't condemn it. I don't judge other people for using. Obviously I work in the mental health, chemically dependently people. So I don't judge them. I don't think people ever, there's people that use for fun, but a lot of people that use like drugs, there's reasoning behind why they use it, and I can't judge them. They're not judging me. But alcohol, I think eventually we'll be hanging out with people. If they're drinking, maybe we'll see, I guess, when all this stuff goes away, and if not, maybe not. I think that's going to be hard, but no, it's just an allergy, I guess, to me. That's what I think. Like I said, I don't judge other people unless they're doing reckless things or endangering other people, drinking and driving, like those kind of people, maybe you shouldn't drink, you know?
Yeah. I think, yeah, no, I 100% don't condemn any of that stuff. What I would say is that the harder the drug that you do, the more likely you are to become addicted to that thing, because it does fuck up your baseline for receiving dopamine. If you have a good experience on a hard drug, your brain is going to store that as a positive memory and uses it as a survival skill and says, we need to figure out how to go find that thing again. So
and get more of it.
Without you, your brain will manifest it as a thought, which is to, man, I loved hanging out with those guys and we had so much fun while we were doing that. That was just a part of it, but really it was the activity. So your brain will do things to trick you into getting that dopamine, because like I said, it thinks that it needs it now to survive, because like fucking thousands of years ago, that was how your brain had to survive. Like getting food was a dopamine kick. So it really was basic survival skills that were associated with these normal things. Time has, changed it dramatically, and boredom causes us to not have massive dopamine surges from basic things. Or not, I shouldn't say massive. We don't get as much of a dopamine kick from like survival things, because we don't really think about needing to survive anymore. So those hard drugs, it's awakening something, and you have a better chance of becoming addicted to that shit. If you have a negative experience, maybe you're a little safer, but I just, like, the people that I've met who were or are addicted to heroin, man, like it kills you time and time again, and you keep using. That's how bad. Like, I know people hear this shit all the time, but when you're living with people who have gone through that shit, who have OD'd multiple times, whose friends have died, like, it's one thing to hear that shit, but when you're staring them face to face, it's so fucking brutal. So I don't condemn shit. Like, if you're addicted, the shit happens, but don't even start with the fucking heroin, cocaine. Like, it'll just fucking kill you, dude. And opiates too. Some people need certain opiates. Yeah. But man, be fucking careful about that shit. That's what I would say. Sorry. It's a big old ramble. Question number 2. Do you have any tips on how to help someone see that they have a serious problem?
Well, I'm obviously not a pro at that, because I tried for...
Did you look into stuff when I was in treatment?
No, because you were there.
Okay.
I think, I mean, from what I understand, it's... what I've learned is sometimes people won't understand it's a problem until legal actions occur. Like if they're getting DWIs, if CPS is involved, stuff like that. They don't see it as a problem. And people are very offensive when you point it out.
Defensive.
And defense, yes. Like you got very defensive and upset every time I brought it up with you. Yeah. And I think it may have caused you to use more. But I don't know if that's the case for everyone. But what's the question? How do you...
Sorry. Do you have any tips for someone to help them see that they have a problem?
So medically, like from a medical professional point of view, there's something called a CAGE assessment. I can actually go through the questions. And that actually, we've used that before in clinic setting to kind of see what someone's usage is. And they may have done this on you before.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it's 4 questions. I can go through it real quick. So the 4 questions are, have you ever felt you should cut down on your drinking? Have people annoyed you by criticizing your drinking? Have you ever felt bad or guilty about your drinking? Have you ever had a drink first thing in the morning to steady your nerves or to get rid of a hangover?
Oh, yeah. I have had these questions.
Yeah. And then obviously you can adapt it to drug use. You could add drug use at the end of it. So those are like the big 4 questions we would ask people. Because oftentimes people get annoyed because people are pointing out like you're drinking a lot. You've been drinking a lot. You've been doing these things. So yeah, they're going to say they get annoyed. Stuff like that. So that may be, that'd be a weird way to be like, hey, buddy, and ask those questions very formally. Right. But it's kind of, if you can take those questions and form it into a conversation, maybe be like, hey, have you noticed, I don't know how to do, but you can get it in a conversation.
So here's an example. Does it bother you that I'm bringing this up? Like, I don't mean to annoy you right now. Like, does it, you know what I mean? Like, if you come at it from a sincere standpoint, not like the scared straight style. Yeah.
Or say have you noticed that your drinking has increased or things that happen when you are drinking? Like,
not even like that. Because even that, my brain already goes to, I remember having those people pose it that way. It still feels very formal and like if you answer it wrong, you could get in trouble.
Yeah, I guess. But
like if it's a close friend of yours, you can do things like it sounds dumb, but like, God damn, dude, you've been killing it lately, huh? Like if you're pointing out drinking, and you say it in that way, and you get them to acknowledge like, yeah, man, I blacked out last night, the night before. If you be creative in the way that you're making sure that they don't feel like you're doing it to corner them. Because at the end of that, it's also not your job to point that out.
Yeah.
If you're in a relationship, it's a little different. Like eventually you do have to, there have to be consequences, because you could be putting that other person in, which goes back to the amends thing. Like you could be putting them in financial trouble or potentially physical trouble. Like there are times when you'll have to do it and the outcome won't be pleasant. Like presenting those things doesn't mean that the person's going to agree. But if it comes to like the safety of you, or if you guys have a family, like the safety of them and those around you, then you don't really have a choice.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, at the end of the day, it's the person's responsibility. So if you're listening to this and you at any point have thought that you might have drank more than the people around you for an elapsed period of time, evaluate why. Write those things down, or you don't even have to write them down. Just think about it. Just think about why. And if you don't really have a reason and you're just doing it to do it, then see if you can dial back. If you're like, I have constant terrible days at work, I am in a shitty relationship, these things, try to change those things. And if the drinking stays the same, then that might be an indicator that you have a problem. Same thing goes with use. Like a lot of the excuses that we make, if you were to remove those things and you're still using, then it's pretty clear that it's most likely not these other things that you're saying that they are. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I would say is try not to be like, try not to be the one that makes them discover this, because really they need to do it. They need to be the ones that it comes out of their mouths and like coaxed, I guess. Because, and this will tie into the next question, which
You should almost copy pasted them in like notes
Yeah,
or something. That's
but they're
okay.
right next to each other, so actually it's not that bad. So the next question was, so I had mentioned that I spent 5 days in the hospital before I realized that
I
had
did
a
not know
problem.
that until I listened to the podcast. That was
Yeah.
very eye-opening for me.
It's interesting.
Way. We were talking about treatment since day 2 of you being in the hospital, and you were very open to it. So it's very surprising that in your mind you thought you were going to come home and not go to. That's what it was in like. Maybe it was day 3.
No, remember I kept getting scared of like of doing it. I just kept saying, I don't know what that looks like. Remember?
Yeah. It's not I guess.
So I didn't tell myself that I was an alcoholic, like truly, until and so this is why it ties in with that other thing. The chemical dependency counselor that's at the St. Cloud Hospital is freaking phenomenal, or one of the 2, or however many there are. She came, asked me a couple of questions, and then just kind of sat smiling, very non-threatening way. And somehow it made me go, yeah, I definitely need to do it. And then that's when she was like, okay, I'm going to make a call. And then the next day they were like, we called into this place, so you might get a phone call from them. So that's when it started to like.
I did all the Hazelton stuff. I was the one that initiated it.
But they had to communicate it to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the social worker. So for
Yeah.
me,
Well,
it
I had to
looked
give
like,
them all of the information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it kept happening, like just very, very, very fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, because then once Hazelden was on board, because then day 8 was when I finally got out of there.
Yeah.
And all that stuff happened.
So 5th day is when you met with her, and you kind of was like, that's when you were like, oh my gosh, I have a problem and I should go to treatment. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it wasn't that I wouldn't go. It was that
you didn't think you had a problem at that point.
I didn't know how to say it. I didn't know how to say,
Okay.
that I was an addict, because then I started to, like, she asked me these questions, and in that whole silence stuff, I was like, well, I guess I used to do this, like the huffing duster thing, like and so then like just seeing for so long that something's been around, as I was like, oh, and yeah, and so that conversation with that dependency counselor was huge.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, she was not there to say whether I did or didn't have a problem. She was just there to
open up the conversation and let
open
you
up
decide.
the conversation. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay.
So there's that. Was it a shocking turning the lights on moment? I guess, yeah. It felt pretty big. Was I relieved? No, not really. So it was scary.
Yeah.
And like I said
going into the unknown too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said in the first episode, I had 2 shooters that I was planning on having as like a pat on the back for making it out of the hospital. Like, so my brain was like, oh fuck, man, we don't get to drink those two things. Just stupid. Did you know you needed help in that moment, or did it still feel like something you could handle on your own? No, I definitely knew that I couldn't do it on my own.
Because you tried.
When I finally like figured it out. Because I knew that going those 7 days sober was a nightmare, and it was so easy to drink again.
Yeah.
Even though I'd been sober for 7 days. So, yeah, it didn't really, I didn't feel relieved.
Yeah.
I didn't feel excited about the whole thing. I felt I was having constant, like, anxiety attacks or panic attacks. Kind of as this stuff continued to happen, and it was very, I had no idea what that stuff looked like. All you've ever seen of like
treatment and stuff
treatment
like that,
and rehab stuff in movies is just awful.
Yeah.
Or so you either see like the conditions are terrible, or it's so relaxed that people
like
are getting
celebrity
away. People are still doing drugs and still drinking. Like, I remember having thoughts of like, I wonder, I think I even asked somebody, I was like, do people sneak drugs into treatment centers? And they were like, yeah, most treatment centers have like search dogs and things so that they get caught. But yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, I wonder if somebody just has drugs in there, am I just going to do those drugs? Like, and then it almost felt like I was like, oh, okay, so when I get into treatment, it won't be alcohol, I'll have something else so that I'm not, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And especially looking back on it now, like, that was just my midbrain, like, coming up with any excuse to try and
find that thing again.
Yeah. Experience. So it's explained as like you're just trying to experience some type of euphoria. Like being buzzed is a slight type of euphoria and like all these things. So
yeah,
my brain just associated with some type of euphoria. That whole dopamine thing is fucking evil. Evil midbrain.
Evil midbrain. Let's just take it out.
Sucks. God. I would not recommend being an addict to anybody, in case you were thinking about it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it, as William Montgomery would say. Let me see here. I'm just going to double check. FB might take a brief break for our sponsors. I want to say that I love you.
I love you too.
You're appreciated and valued. And like another thing with going into treatment was I'd already spent over a week away from everybody. Right? And so I didn't know if my job would take me back. And 28 days. And even though they were like, it's only what your insurance is approved for. So it could be 10 days, could be 7 days. I was like, what's the most you can be there, though? And they were like, 28 days. I was like, it's going to be 28 for sure. I just had a feeling.
Which is, I mean, if insurance is going to approve that, you might as well get it.
But I mean, from my perspective, like, you'd already done so much without me there. That was the longest I'd gone without being home ever, I think, right? And then I'm bad at math.
It'd be 36 days altogether.
Yeah. To go, basically a month without being, over a month without being home is a big ask of somebody.
Yeah.
Especially when I know how much anxiety, like finance stuff, brings you. That's a huge, like, it's one thing when somebody travels for work or something, but I'm traveling and making nothing, if anything, taking more and more money away. So it was.
But in my head too, It was, if you didn't do this, how much more money would you be spending using alcohol again? Or what if we had to do a hospital stint again to get you back there again? What if something worse had happened? So in my head, how much being in the hospital and going to treatment was going to cost didn't mean anything as in comparison to what's going to happen in 5 years if we don't get help now, kind of a thing.
Yeah. I'm just saying what was going through my head was like,
I guess.
No, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Knowing what I've already seen you go through was what I was thinking about.
So 2 sick kids and then COVID.
Yeah, and then
and trying to go back to work and figure things out with babies.
Watching the corona thing slowly happen, I felt like I was in a movie.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't, seriously, people on the outside, what are people on the outside saying?
Yeah.
Like, people would say that all the time. And it was so weird to, really be in that.
Yeah, because you were in a bubble.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I kept getting better, and it seemed like as I was getting better, the world was getting worse.
Yeah. Scary world to come into when you're getting better, and then you have to come into a world that is unknown, and it's still unknown. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So
yeah,
and we don't have to talk a lot about our relationship on this, obviously, because we're going to talk about it in the series, right?
Well, yeah, but we can bounce around and say, like I've said before, because we've touched stuff that we've talked about already on this. So I mean, yeah, the relationship stuff, I'm sure you're wondering, am I gonna fall in love with all of those men?
No, I thought you liked me, you were constantly intoxicated, and your attraction to me, I always associated it with how intoxicated you were. And so I had this fear of when you when you were sober, you weren't going to be as attracted to me as you were. Or maybe sober mind, you'd think that you would identify all the problems I have and not want to be with me.
I did see that a lot while I was in treatment, was people taking what they were learning and talking about how much of a problem somebody else had, or all of these flaws of other people. I didn't really do that, and I don't understand.
Yeah,
it doesn't fix anything. There was internal shit with people on my unit, but it was petty shit, I don't know, not doing their chore because we had to do chores while we were in there.
Yeah. I do have a question for you, though, and I don't think anyone's asked you. And I don't know if you I don't think, obviously you didn't touch on it in the last episode, but maybe you should talk to people about how it was being an atheist and going to treatment that was religious based. And how because there might be someone who doesn't believe that's listening to this and is hoping to get help, but knows that there's very limited help. Yeah. So kind of how you worked your way through that, because the first few days were really hard for you hearing all this religious stuff, but how you kind of took that and used it to help you in your treatment and your journey through treatment. Yeah. Without using religion.
That sucked, because I had, so we had to do something called morning meditation, but morning meditation was just, there was 5 books that we would read out of every single morning, and 3 out of 5 were the exact same passage every time, and then 2 of them, or no, there was 6, so 4 out of the 6 were the same thing, and then 2 of them were based on the date. So January 5th entry, that kind of shit. And one of the entries was for, I think it was February 27th in this one book. The person read, and the person who read it was a shit stirrer. Like they like to play with their own shit.
Yeah.
They read, "Are we lost like the atheist, never to know peace?" And it's a call and response thing. So people are supposed to say no. It's like, fuck, man. And the whole passage, it was basically about how atheist is fucked if they're attempting to recover. And on top of that, before I went into treatment, they told me that it wasn't a religious, like it was what did they call it? A faith organized, something like that.
Yeah.
But they were like, no one's gonna try and push religion down your throat. And it was like, just kept happening where they, like, speakers would get on their high horse because people come in and volunteer and would speak. And short thing though, like, I started to like gradually just get like numb to it. And then I had there was a speaker. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to say. Anytime, and this has happened to me outside of treatment, anytime somebody would bring up atheism, they would say, at my lowest point, I was an atheist. Or they'd say, I was an atheist, but, and so it was always like, atheism was not only like, is there no hope for you, but it's also associated with the lowest, your rock bottom in recovery. Like, so stupid. And then one night we had an atheist speaker, and the first one who like was like, didn't try to sway from it. And he didn't, it's not that he tried to push that any type of agenda. He just tried to let people know that they don't have to let that shit get you hung up. And so it was very like quickly went over it. But as soon as he said it, I felt the whole auditorium, there's like 500 people in there, just disconnect from him. Might even be more than 500, I'm not sure. But just, and everybody, so, fuck, sorry. I'm trying to keep, yes, okay. So I went up and shook that dude's hand and just was unbelievably grateful for what he had said. And then during that, there was one other person behind me that wanted to shake his hand. And as we were walking back, I introduced myself to this guy, and turned out he was atheist as well. And I was like, oh, so I'm sure you've been having a lot of fun with this stuff. And he was like, oh, it's my first day. I was like, holy shit. So I told him like some of the things that had helped me. And then like while I was in there, I had this like massive
epiphany,
which was that like they talk about your higher power, and what they really are trying to say is what is important enough to you to keep you motivated from using. They do a terrible job, and I'm not saying this treatment center, I'm saying the whole AA thing. They do a bad job of just saying that. Like, they get hung up on you getting hung up on the idea of God. So they say, oh, your higher power could be a sneaker. Your higher power could be this. Scratch the whole higher power thing. Just what would keep you motivated enough to not use is what they really want to do.
Or your purpose.
So that's when I came up with purpose.
Okay, yeah.
So don't even worry about the phrasing of higher power at all. Don't give that any meaning. Only give meaning to what gives you purpose. That's what they're trying to say with higher power. But then, yeah, I had that other realization.
Which
I'll talk about that other shit later.
Okay.
Because I went on that for long
I know,
enough.
it took you a long time. I'm like, is he still breathing over there?
Yeah, saying lots of words.
Yeah.
But that was, yeah, there was very gradual things that like came to all that shit. And it's because I was atheist. Like,
Yeah. And that's one thing I worried about you going to treatment too, is because every treatment facility is somewhat faith organized or religious based. And I just had hoped. I knew of some people that had went to Hazelton celebrity wise that I didn't know if they were religious or not. And I don't know. But
if you're famous though, like
I know.
I've seen, yeah.
It's fine. What else?
That's, I mean, really all I can think of.
Yeah.
I will say like, that, yeah, like back to the faith thing, like just to round it off. I did have another realization that I think is important, which is that, not like even religious people, when they hear I'm praying for you, or like I'll pray for you or whatever, they get bent out of shape over. And even like thoughts and prayers, what somebody's actually saying is, I hope that the necessary things that are available right now are available to you. So like, if you're praying that someone's cancer goes away, you're really saying, I hope that medicine is advanced enough to be able to help you get into remission. Like all of these things, they're really saying, I hope that whatever you need is available to you to not be in pain or suffering anymore, or in financial strain.
Yeah.
And so there's some, like, I hope that helps people, because it's like people check out when they hear, even the religious people that were not religious people, but people that believe in God that were there, like would come to me and be like, this fucking sucks, dude. I like, keep going to all these groups and all this religious stuff keeps coming up, and I just want to be sober. And
oh, interesting. Yeah.
so you don't have to be atheist to struggle with that shit, because it can seem like you're diving into something you don't really give a shit about.
Yeah.
Like you're satisfied with your connection with a belief system, that you don't need that other stuff. What you really need is the tools. Be sober.
Yeah, and the tools to stay sober. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So, anything you want to add?
I don't think so. I mean, we'll probably do another one of these every so many episodes if people have questions.
Yeah.
But yeah. And we'll talk more about relationship stuff, kids stuff, I guess, later on as it comes.
Oh, nice. Somebody sent in a question, but I'm actually already, that I answered all these questions. That's funny.
Okay.
So
good,
one thing that Kim said that I didn't point out in the other episodes was that the letters that I read, I don't read them beforehand.
Yes, that's big important. Chris didn't point that out, and I actually didn't know that until I asked you. Can I take a pee break? I have to pee really bad.
Yeah, we're gonna take a slight urinary break.
Before you read that, I'm sorry.
Right back. Okay, so as we pointed out before that little mini break, once a week I read these letters, and I'm reading them for the first time along with you guys. And I do not name the people who send these letters, family or close friends. It might be obvious for some of the letters whether they're a family or a friend, but
yeah,
does not go.
And I'm not reading a letter. People are wondering.
You're not?
Do you want me to?
Yeah, we already talked about that.
Oh, shoot. Okay. All right. Maybe after this COVID stuff, so then we can leave the house if one of us needs to.
Okay. This has taken me a while to write because I couldn't quite seem to figure out how to put this all into words. When we were younger, during the summer break, you would shout to me, "Go put your rollerblades on and meet me outside." We used to spend hours outside in the summertime skating and in the wintertime snowboarding, no matter how cold it was, and I would help you film. Somewhere in that time, something changed. We constantly seemed to be at each other's throats. I remember that day you told me that the reason you were moving out was because you couldn't stand being around me anymore. It haunted me for a long time. Sometime after that, it was all behind us and we were able to hang out again. I don't think I ever fully gathered that you drank until I was about 15. I would see you in this state that wasn't necessarily bad, but I could tell that it definitely wasn't you. The first time I ever saw you really intoxicated was when you had called me to babysit Landon right before I left for Colorado. You walked home from one of your neighbors and could barely even stand. You threw up the whole night, and I could barely sleep because I was so worried that you weren't gonna be okay. Landon had heard the noise and it scared him, so he came and slept on the couch at my feet. It didn't really occur to me that you may have a problem until I got a phone call while I was in Colorado that you were in the hospital after you had tried to take your own life. I was devastated and could barely hold it together. I almost flew back home just so I could say how sorry I was for being so shitty to you all those years. After I was home, we would go to your comedy nights where you would tell me that the only way you could go on stage and tell these jokes was when you had had multiple drinks. That always confused me because you made me laugh even when I wouldn't want to with your bits.
Mm-hmm.
I would look at you being devastated. You would walk up to strangers and try to tell them your jokes where they would be annoyed and try to go away, and yet they couldn't. I had to separate you from people. I had to separate you from people a lot when it would get to that point. I got over it, and sometime that summer I invited all the brothers to go to this golf tournament where we went to celebrate me getting married. You had been drinking since that morning, like some of the others, and things got way too out of hand where it ended in you and me fighting over the span of several months. I never really got over it. I would talk about it with Mom, and we would argue for hours because I felt she defended the way I was being treated by not just the other brothers, but by you specifically. I could barely be in the same room as you, and it was very frustrating. More recently, we found ourselves in a similar position. You've made a vast recovery, and I'm so incredibly proud of this brand new progress you've made. I can see it you anytime I see you. You asked me to write a letter about how you're drinking. Yep. Honestly, it took me a while to find out how to put it. I went back and forth on how it directly affected me, and the conclusions I came to all circled around the fact that your drinking almost didn't affect me at all. The only way I could see it directly, the way it directly affected me, was because it pained me to see that you were not the fun-loving brother I once knew. You were a completely different person, and it messed with me and took me forever to adjust to. Now I see that you are taking the necessary steps to recover, and for that I applaud you. Most people today still don't take these steps to help themselves. And just know that there are hundreds of people that are here for you when times get hard, including me. Love you, and I'm proud of you.
That was a hard one. How do you not cry during all those?
Yeah. I mean, I think like when I was in treatment, there was so much crying. Like, there were stints where like you hear so much fucked up shit that it almost seems like it takes more to get you in that headspace because you're just so blown away by everything. You're more in a state of shock.
Yeah.
And like when I think I kind of did that with myself while I was in there, in the hospital and until certain points. I think I was just shocked that I was even saying certain things out loud, and it felt very foreign. So it didn't make sense. So like there was shit that like wouldn't get me worked up. But man, that one hurt. I don't mean like he hurt my feelings. I mean, I don't think he was trying to be shitty.
No.
I think he was just being honest.
Yeah.
And we talked about that before we recorded this, was that I don't want people to think that like you're told to like when you're making amends with people, let them know that it was the disease, right? It's alcoholism, it's addiction, as to why you did these things. But because you're the vehicle, or I was the vehicle with which people saw the disease, it is very personal. You can't pretend that it's not, and you can't expect people to not take it that way. And so I don't want people to think that I'm trying to seem like I'm an amazing person now, and like that.
I think we're all in a work in progress. Yeah.
Well, but in just that those things weren't what they were. You know what I mean? Like, I don't remember telling that person that that they were the reason I moved out. I'm trying to think of which time. Because I moved to Oregon for a little bit.
I think that person was talking about when we moved, maybe bought the house, and we were having a lot of altercations with that person when we lived there. But I don't know.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah, there was a couple of times I moved out of our parents' houses. Is what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway. I can say he because I guess all my... You
have all brothers, so...
Yeah.
Okay. Should we end the podcast on that?
Well, he said that it was a brother. Whatever. Perfect. Well, actually, it'll be a little shorter than an hour.
Well, it's going to be a short one. It's just a Q&A. Those ones are usually shorter.
So this will be a little shorter episode. But as always, if you've got questions, then definitely feel free to email those in to DuckGrayDuke. That's Duke as in the college, not Duck. DuckGrayDuke @gmail.com. Or you can just message the Facebook page.
Or message either of us personally
if you want to do a call-in episode where like you talk with Kim and I, that's cool. That we would just say, I mean, I don't know.
If you don't want people to know
if you don't want people to know that it's you, then let us know ahead of time so that I can like manipulate voices and stuff.
Yeah.
And we'll be sure not to say your name.
Yeah.
If you don't want to do that, this is the Not So Anonymous Alcoholic podcast, but
you can stay anonymous.
You can stay anonymous for sure. So the way that you end like an AA meeting.
Yeah. How do you end it? I kind of heard the first episode. So
when I said with that, I'll pass.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you.
So each person says.
So it's like when you're done with your, like whatever you're adding to the group.
Okay.
You can just say and then I'll pass.
I'll let you end it then.
Well.
You want me to say it too?
No. Okay. Only one person says it at a time, so it's fine.
All right.
I can say, and with that, we'll pass.
Okay.
So thank you guys for listening. Subscribe. All that. Share these posts, and episodes. And thank you so freaking much for listening. And with that, we will pass.